In this video article, we're going to look at 5 habits for aspiring fiction writers that I think all aspiring fiction writers should be looking to build. Before we start, if you want to get an email with a time-stamped overview every time I release a new video like this, head over to my website deliberate-practice.com, sign up there. Coming soon will be the director's cut version of a series of articles that I'll write and create here called How to Write Your First Short Story, and there will be a free version on YouTube where just everything's spliced together, so it'll be 3 hours long. But on the Deliberate Practice site for subscribers, each section will have its own page with timestamp detailed notes, guides on how to actually apply the material in it, and so on. So it'll definitely be worth having. So go over and sign up for that, and let's get started with the first habit. So the first habit you should be looking to build is consistent writing. This is fiction writing. So write every day if you can, 5 days a week if you can't write every day, at least 250 words. That might not sound like a lot of words, but if you write every day, it really compounds. It's 91,000 words in the next 12 months. And obviously, if we call it 90,000 words for every 250 words a day you do, if you can double that, make it 500 words, then that's 180,000 words in the next 12 months. That's 2 novels worth. Search for the time of day that works best for you and for your body clock. For me, I prefer writing in the morning, usually awake around 7 a.m. Go down, have coffee, let the dog out, let him back in, start writing. Don't check emails. No one's bothering me apart from the dog. So for me, that works best. But for you, you might be a night owl. But the point is, try and identify what time is the most creative for you and block those periods of time off for your writing. Track your word counts too. Have some kind of diary or some kind of spreadsheet or some kind of thing. I use a thing called Don't Break the Red Line, which I learned from a guy called Steve Pavlina. I can't find the original article anymore. It was back in the early 2000s. He learnt it from Jerry Seinfeld, and basically I just have like the equivalent of a calendar and put my word count in the calendar in a big tick, and I just try and create a red line that goes on and on and on. So that's how I do it, but you should do it. Couple of strategies. James Scott Bell, I think I read about these in connection with the National Novel Writing thing, which is now defunct. He said to get your words up, to get 50,000 words in a month, 2 strategies he uses are the Nifty 250 and the Furious 500. And I forget which way round it was, but I think the Nifty 250 was first thing in the morning. He'd wake up and just bang off 250 words. And then the Furious 500 were just before he'd go to bed. He'd go up and see if he could get a really quick 500 words done. But if you Google James Scott Bell and Furious 500 or Nifty 250, I'm sure you'll find it. And finally, a little tip. I have found that if you're doing a writing session and you go for a walk and you dictate, you go for a 15-20 minute walk, you dictate for 10-15 minutes, that's about 500 words. You come home, load those words straight to your computer, and then edit them. By the time you've finished editing them, especially if you've got some kind of audio trigger like a writing playlist that's playing as you're editing the words, because often, for me anyway, dictated words aren't as high quality a draft as written words. But by the time you've edited them and knocked them into shape, your writing brain is really ticking over, and you'll suddenly find that you take off and you might add another 250, 500 words on top of that. So that's something that I use from time to time. If it helps you, that's great. Habit 2, read and fill the tank. So you'll find a video on my channel, and I'll link it at the end with the recommended videos. It's called Stephen Barnes, Read 10 Times Your Daily Output and 1 Level Up. More detail in that video, but basically if you're writing 250 words a day, aim to read 2,500 words a day. The reason is to fill the tank, which is your the subconscious part of your brain. Fill it with images, plot ideas, character ideas, dialogue ideas, story ideas, all those kind of things, because most stories are just new combinations of existing elements. And so what you're doing by filling the tank is you're adding source material to your story kaleidoscope. And that's a metaphor I came across recently. I wish I remembered where it was from, because I think it's a great metaphor. You bung in to the back of your head all these story ideas from reading and so on, and then your brain churns them around in the way that a kaleidoscope churns around different pieces of metal, and it makes new combinations by doing that. Also, another way of filling the tank: watch great films and great TV shows, and don't watch shit. Find out what is great films. There's no excuse in this day and age not to be able to watch a couple of great films a week to get more story material into the story kaleidoscope. If you've got Netflix or Amazon Prime or Disney Plus or whatever you've got, I'm sure you've got a streaming service or access to one, you'll be able to find great films to watch. So if you need to relax and you don't fancy reading but you want to watch something, don't watch shit on the TV, watch a great film instead, or get involved in a great TV series. There's plenty of great TV series. There was a renaissance in the mid 2000s of long form story told in TV series. Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad, The Sopranos are just three. There were plenty more, and there are still good TV series out now, so watch those rather than watching shit reality TV or anything like that. Even stage plays can be good for adding material to the tank. So you can watch those, and if you're doing your writing properly and treating it like a business, you can offset the cost of the tickets. They're bloody expensive now here in the UK, but you can offset the cost of the tickets as a business expense. And then finally, if you're in situations where you're like in the car on your own, commuting or whatever, you can listen to audiobooks as well, another way to fill the tank. So definitely you need to read. Definitely the 10x your daily output and 1 level up. See the video I talked about for that. But there are other ways of filling the tank as well as reading. Habit 3, practice. This is one that probably very few writers do. As well as writing, you have to practice writing. That means identifying sub-skills, practicing them to the point of unconscious competence. You need to learn how the brain learns and how to practice effectively. Now, I've got a resource called the Repetition Paradox, which is all about deliberate practice for writers. My email address will be mentioned in a couple of slides' time, so if you want to know more about that, just email me. But otherwise, learn about deliberate practice, learn how to apply it for learning to write better, and set some time aside for practice. And here's the thing: you might think, oh my god, how much time am I going to need to do to practice? You can do an awful lot if you just practice consistently between 15 and 20 minutes a day. I often say 18 minutes a day, 6 days a week. That totals 110 hours of practice, and I guarantee you 95% plus of your contemporaries are doing zero practice. In a year's time, if you do this practice properly and know what to identify to practice, your writing will significantly improve compared to theirs. Habit 4, study stories. I suggest to start with films for this, and by studying story I don't mean just watching a story, but the reason I suggest films is because they're quicker to analyse than books. They're quicker to consume, so you can do the first viewing. And most films, depending on what era it's from, so contemporary films tend to be 100 to 120 minutes long. Older films can be longer. I mean, yes, there are outliers that are longer, like Interstellar is nearly 3 hours, for example, but they're quicker to analyse than books. And choose one film a month and analyse the bejesus out of it. I wrote something else originally, and my spell check on the screen, the slide software didn't like it, so I replaced it. And what you do is you look for the story, start with the story spine, then look at the sequences, then look at the scenes, and then start looking for other things like foreshadowing, payoffs, all that kind of stuff. Precisely what you look for will depend on what your favoured story models are. So I haven't gone into too much detail there because it will vary depending on what story models you're following or learning or thinking of using for your own work. So tie in the story analysis to whatever story model you're planning to use. As a side note, or I should have written byproduct, doing this analysis will give you a lot more material for your story kaleidoscope that we talked about in habit 2. Okay, final habit to check out is revision. First, you've got to adopt this mindset. When you write, you're writing. Editing and revision is for when you finish the story and your work has sat and breathed for a period of time. So when you're writing, don't be going, oh, that was a bad word choice, I'm going to cross that out and change this one. Those are two. Writing and revision are different jobs from different hemispheres of the brain, so split them. They need to be done separately. If you try revising while you're writing, all you'll do is you'll interrupt any flow that you've managed to get into. Revision itself has got two jobs. The first is to make your story better for your readers. That's to clear up any story points, make the prose stronger, to support the story stronger and with more clarity for the readers. That's the standard job that most people think of with revision. The second job, though, is just as important, which few people talk about, and it's to identify reoccurring weaknesses that crop up in your writing so you can isolate them and then practice them, and see habit 3 for more about practice. So your stories not only work, this is a story, I'm going to send it off to a magazine, or I'm going to post it on Royal Road, or whatever you're doing with your stories, but if you save up your edits and then in a month's time or 3 months time you look at 3 stories, and by the way, I always advise you do your revision, so you write your story however you're writing it, and then print it out and do your revision on paper, not on the computer screen. Several reasons why. On the computer screen, your brain is just lazy, or I don't know what it is, and the words look familiar, but when they're put out on the page, they look very different, and it's much easier to revise. Plus, it then creates a record of your revisions, and so when you've got 3 or 4 stories done and revised, then a month or so after that you can look at all of those revisions and go, oh gosh, do you know what, I'm doing this in this story, and I'm doing it here, and I'm doing it here, and find those things that you always edit out and take them to your practice space, work out how to practice them and get rid of them, because that will then free up energy, editing energy and time to focus on bigger picture items. So that's habit 5. So closing out, this probably sounds like it needs a lot of extra time, and you're probably wondering where you get that from. Well, here are some simple ways to make more time. So stop watching TV, stop or limit your social media usage, get up 30 minutes earlier. Do one or all 3 of those things and you'll easily make lots of time. TV, if you sit and watch, I stopped watching TV by accident in 2008. It's a long story. The only thing I now watch on TV is rugby, and that's at most twice a week, but in the summer it's 0 times a week, and during the week I don't watch any of the reality TV, political shows, news, shitty soap operas. Just cut all of those out of your diet. Sports that you don't even like, just cut everything out of your life. You'll feel a lot better. Social media is could be a video on its own, but my advice would be just to get rid of social media, unless it's absolutely imperative that you use it for business purposes. I use YouTube, obviously, so I have YouTube. You can get apps that limit your time on these things every day. Use one of those. It will make your life so much richer and free up time. And then if you get up 30 minutes earlier, you've got 30 minutes to practice or to write, whichever you're going to do. So those are simple ways to make more time. These kind of things, practicing, writing, sub skills, etc., are things I talk about in a resource I'm putting together for aspiring fiction writers. That resource is called The Writing Vault. You can see the URL there. It'll be linked in the description below this video, so go and check that out. If you've got any questions, you can email me at paul@deliberate-practice.com, and I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can. And finally, here are some recommended videos from my channel, including the Stephen Barnes Read 10x one.